What's that?
This meeting is the Melissa Franquist show. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, what, 5? No, 4. Four invoice lists here. Ouch.
Oh. I was gonna say, I'm not that involved in the end contract, but it was me. Somebody please let me know. Yes, that's what happens when we have just the organizational meeting, we kind of skip the. More pile on.
It's twice a year, right? Organizational, and then in July, when we
we
skip
skipped
the
one.
Yep.
July 4th meeting. We are recording and live streaming when you are ready, Mr. Chairman.
Well, the clock says 11 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners, Finance and Administration Committee to order. Is there any desired changes for the agenda?
None for me, sir.
Looks like a pretty short agenda. We'll do a call to the public. Just checking.
Wait,
Anybody online?
There is not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Then we'll move on to our first item of business, which is consider approving the agreement for animal shelter services between the Humane Animal Treatment Society, otherwise known as HATS, and Isabella County effective January 1st, 2024, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So if you want to kind of summarize the major changes, it looks like the cost,
Cost stayed the same
yeah,
as it has. There was, as you know, about a $20,000, well, there was a $20,000 increase the last contract with HATS. Part of that increase the last time was because animal control secretary had retired. The sheriff chose not to fill that position. His police clerks took on those duties. That position had been housed at the shelter, and as you might imagine, was taking a lot of the visitors, the phone calls into the shelter. That wasn't falling on HATS. And so that increase in the last contract was really to make up for, hey, we've taken a secretary away. Here's something that will help you gain it back. And actually, I see Amanda Tillotson is our executive director for HATS. It's just joined us. She brought a proposal you might have seen on the Criminal Justice Committee agenda this morning to ask the Board of Commissioners to
waive its portion.
yes, waive its portion of the adoption fee. So the $15 fee per animal. She brought that appropriately to the Criminal Justice Committee this morning, and so that'll be on your agenda for Tuesday. That kind of came up because in negotiations, we noted that, HATS had hoped for an increase in their compensation. Chairman Hope, myself, and Sheriff were a part. We were the ones negotiating on behalf of the county, and we suggested with the current situation that there would be no compensation increase.
hold on.
They kind of countered with, well, would you consider doing away with the adoption fee as, we can't increase their compensation, but would we consider doing away with that? Well, that negotiating committee certainly had no authority to negotiate that, right? So we said, you have to come to the board with that request. The board sets those fees. So that's what you'll see Tuesday on your agenda from Criminal Justice. So that's kind of an aside about, no, the compensation isn't changing in the contract, but that's what led to that request from them for the county to waive the adoption fees. Mostly the language changes in the contract just serve to clarify open hours of operation, and that they, we do hear some feedback that I went to the shelter, someone was there and they didn't come to the door. And we really talked that through in negotiations about why that is. They have open hours to the public, and then they have other hours where their staff is always there, right? Caring for animals, cleaning animals. They're not there to do an adoption, and they likely can't help in that regard, but people at the door see them. So we talked about improving that sort of communication. And then also they've written into this version that they'll be a little more available for adoptions outside of open hours, right? People can call and make an appointment.
There you go.
And we've written that in. A lot of the changes had to do with just communication. When we started out, we didn't know going from animal control under administration to the sheriff operationally, how that would work out. So when we started, we said, Hats, if you have to contact the animal control officer for emergency situations, always go through central dispatch. But if it's non-emergency, you can text him, you can call him, you can email him. But operationally, sheriff needs to keep track of animal control numbers, complaint numbers. So if they're not contacting him through central dispatch, he loses kind of that ability to correct that. So again, not anything contentious, just operationally, we see a way to improve. So that change was written into the contract. So HATS will contact central dispatch for emergency and non-emergency animal control issues. If there's follow-up, we're not talking about that, right? And then we really worked through that in negotiations operationally. They understand what that means. One neat thing that we talked through, the county kind of said, hey, we want you to offer low-cost spay and neuter clinics to the public. And they kind of said, well, what do you want? Because we do that already. We said, we don't know if it's low cost, but the clinic that they have at the shelter, and Amanda Tillotson, executive director of HATS, has joined us. So Amanda, please speak up if I get this wrong. My understanding is that when you do, you have the clinic there and spays and neuters that you do there, other things, it's about a quarter of the population is shelter pets and about 3/4 of that is from the public. So the public is utilizing that low cost spay and neuter clinic. It's just it's not out and about. It's right there at the shelter. I think we were getting that confused with the low cost vaccine clinics. That animal control officer and secretary used to go out with Doc Poll and they would go out into the community and have those clinics. Clearly, you don't go out and do spay and neuter on the fly in the parking lot, right? That's a clinical situation. We want people to bring their animals to the shelter. So it's a good learning experience for us, right? This feedback we're getting, we want these low cost clinics. It's already low cost, it's already at the shelter. Maybe the feedback is more to do about subjectivity of low cost, right? Someone maybe thinks it wasn't, but clearly they're doing that. They're doing that there. And then really the other language changes again about communication and sending that we've had to figure out without the animal control secretary there, who was always the liaison between HATS and the county. Now it's HATS staff and sheriff's office staff. You know, their HATS is collecting money. They're submitting it to the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office is looking at reports, verifying that this is the money coming from HATS. And that's all new because again, the animal control secretary used to handle that. So just kind of clarifying. Yep. Originally we had said, well, you've got to make sure adoption related expenses come to us. Well, it's boarding fees and impound fees too, not just those adoption fees. And that's kind of what started that whole conversation about the fees. So just building in clarity to that. Amanda, are there any other changes we made that you think are worth noting here? Really, it was just to, I feel, improve operations.
Yeah, I think the only one you didn't mention was, and like you said, it's mostly all just clarification, minor tweaks to maybe add a few more words to make sure we all understand exactly what's expected. The only other section was the repair and maintenance. We added a little bit of information in there based on a lot of the new fixtures that we've installed in the kennels and clarifying who would be responsible for updates, and HATS would be responsible for maintaining if there's purchasing needed for repairs of that equipment. Now the county would perform the repairs, but we might have to say buy a new part if it's something that we had installed. So we clarified that. I think that is about it in regards to changes though.
Yeah, it was great. I think it took the most time, Amanda, just getting together, because once we all got in the room together, I think we spent a couple hours and got it done. I mean, we really were done. The thing went back and forth after that, but no significant changes. So thank you for extending this contract. You know, if you recall, the original one was set to expire September 30. I did come to the board, get an extension through the end of the year, and we still just we didn't make that, but, I appreciate HATS and especially the president of the HATS board, Lee Fabiano, for forwarding this issue. And she hated to reach out. She knew a lot was going on our end, but it's certainly still important to move the chains on this issue, right?
Amanda, the only thing I would bring up, and this is just to be fully transparent. You're probably aware the county has some really difficult financial situations that we're currently faced with. And we're seeking a millage in February on the 27th. And all we're doing is we're trying to continue services as we've done over the years. We haven't been lavish in our spending. But if it does fail, we're gonna have to look at non-mandated services. And I can tell you right now, the board really appreciates everything HATS is doing. You perform a service that we could not perform from a government entity. So your service is very valuable, but should that fail, I'm sure there's gonna be time through the fiscal year to probably, we may have to look at winding down the budget. And that is gonna impact a lot of different departments, a lot of different services, including HATS. So you might want to just give thought to that. What kind of planning do you need to do now? Should the county be faced with having to look at a reduction of services? But we hope that the village gets approved and we can continue our services as normal. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No, I appreciate the heads up on that, and we'll hope that everything continues on so we can all do full services that our community needs.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. No questions?
Commissioner Emery, nothing?
No, this is good.
Then I'll move that we take the consideration of the agreement for animal shelter services between the Humane Animal Treatment Society, HATS, and Isabella County, effective January 1st, 2024, to the work session next Tuesday. Support. It's been moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. It moves forward. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Director
Thank you.
Jones. Be safe out there.
Okay, looks like the next one is a discussion regarding major county expenses and
Segued
funding.
right into it. there.
Yeah, right. So we took those other two items as you suggested. Remember, we've had those couple of discussions and just melded them into one, so.
It's all about money
Yeah, yes, it is.
or the lack thereof.
Yes,
So,
that's more so about what it is these days. Yes.
So I think we had a good session talking about educating the public.
You did.
yeah, I'm sorry.
And I think that's important to
More to
do,
come.
but I don't know if I know you've got so much on your plate. Have you given any thought to looking at what cuts we may make if we have to make those? And I know we're also looking at this wage study. And some things come to mind. I'm not going to share them all right now, but I'll probably just put them on paper and just pass them to you so they don't get lost. My mind doesn't retain stuff
As well as you.
when I was younger, but
Yes, that cut sheet, for lack of a
Better term.
more
yeah.
poetic term for it, is being developed. I think that was loud and clear from the session we had yesterday about educating the public and, these are the facts.
Hmm.
That's,
That's gonna be critical. I went to a township board meeting for the roads out in Rollins. And it was the busiest place in the entire Isabella County. There was probably 70 or 80 people at this meeting, and I think there's only 200 people that live
wrong.
out there in Rollins. But yeah, they were very interested. They were concerned. They're looking for information. They're looking for town halls. They want to understand. They want us to understand as much as anything else. How did we get into this and why did we get into this? And what are you going to do to make sure it never happens again? I had the same situation at the Republican Party meeting.
Mhm.
I got grilled for 20 minutes on why it is that we got into this and how we got into it. And The biggest thing was once we started talking about, how we're gonna keep ourselves from ever getting into this situation again, the tone of the entire question and answer period subsided. It was not as intense or confrontational. They understood that we are working through this and we're trying to set up a system so that we maintain our long-term financial viability. And they appreciated that. But I think that's the thing we've got to get out there is sure that this thing's happened. We are in this situation. We are taking necessary steps to work through it. We are looking ahead. We're not just stuck in now. We don't have blinders on. We're looking 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road. And we're trying to be as diligent and thorough as we can to make sure that we do the right thing at the right time, no knee-jerk reactions, being, again, as thoughtful as we possibly can, but doing the right thing. And what I mentioned too, that this millage request, again, will be a barometer of taxpayer sentiment. We need to know how they feel.
It's the directive.
Yep, and that mandate from the taxpayers is going to give us that mandate to do what we have to do. And there may be a tough 4 or 5 years if we can't get this thing to pass. So they understood that. Again, they were appreciative of the fact that we are being proactive. That was big. I think that really
So
made a
the,
difference.
the meetings yesterday was just to start getting us on that collective, same page, getting a literal web page where
They want
where
communication.
they can go to, right?
Mhm.
And the information's there for them and getting those common talking points so that what you're saying at that meeting is the same thing you're saying at your meeting is the same thing you're saying.
Especially when we get to that point where we've got to make adjustments. You talk the cut sheet, don't you call it?
Yeah.
When you start talking about that, we've got to just lay it out there, just be honest, say, here's our situation, this is how it's going to play out. Now, we're not trying to threaten anybody, we're not trying to coerce anybody, we're just trying to make sure everybody's understands the consequences. These are the facts. So,
And yeah, facts about, that's exactly what we talked about yesterday, how we got
Good.
here, why we're here, what caused it, why it's,
what we're gonna do about it now, and then what we're
doing about it.
gonna do about it so it never happens again.
Well, it's never happened. I don't think there's anything in the past. I mean, I kind of think about the spending on the 9 years that I've been on the board previous this current year. And the only things that come to mind is the jail, which we have basically a 70-year-old building that we have to do
Had
something
to do
with.
something, right?
Look what we're facing with a 50-year-old building right now. But other than that, it's been pay and fringe benefit costs, trying to keep ourselves marketable so we can have the talent that we need to provide the services.
Right.
Maybe you can point out 1 or 2 things, 5,000 here, 5,000 there, things that we have new spending, but there's hardly any of that.
Mhm.
I think the only thing I can find fault with is that we didn't get the forecast tool
There you go.
way back when to know that we were going in this direction. What would we have done? We'd have probably started making some of the cuts earlier.
Or ask for smaller millages earlier on to kind of head this off. Is the better you forecast, the better you can make decisions now. I think that's one of the biggest things that I talked about at both the Republican Party meeting and at the township meeting, was that we have a tool now that allows us to look ahead and better forecast, better determine what's the course of action now if we have potential issues in that forecast down the road. And I think that was a important piece of my conversations with a lot of people, was that we're putting in place certain methodologies within the administration to keep this from ever happening again. Because from a business standpoint, for me, and I understand this whole concept of, well, there's nobody really to blame, but when, as I mentioned to Sheriff, our primary objective as county commissioners is to ensure the long-term financial viability of the county. That's our job. the bottom line, all this other stuff is superfluous to that particular, objective. We have to figure out a way to make sure that that happens. So while we can't, I don't really want to lay blame, the issue is that somewhere in this process, we got to where we are. Now, in business, that's unacceptable. To me, that is totally unacceptable. There should be methodologies in place. There should be safe checks in place. There should be all types of review and overview to make sure that these things don't happen. To be this far, I mean, if you're talking $5 million in the hole and your budget's 25 million, roughly, without all this other stuff that we got to do.
Exactly right.
So, I mean, that's 20%.
But even in business, there's a lot of business that
Sure.
that plan for COVID-19.
Oh, true. That's
How
what
could
I'm
we, we used to get revenue sharing at a certain amount, that was reduced.
saying.
Look at delinquent tax revolving fund, we used to dip into that quite a bit, and that's no longer available to us. There's things that we have no control over,
Right.
including wages and fringes. I mean, the one thing we could have done earlier is not give out pay increases. Probably looked at staff reductions earlier and, to right the ship earlier, but we'd be a different organization today than we are.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
I think we need to be careful that we don't want to assign any kind of blame. I think we've made the best decisions we had with the information we
Right.
had, trying to keep up. And
Great. So my hope with this, though, with the things that we're putting in place now, that we'll have better information. So that we don't get 5 million. I mean, making up $1 million is that's a big difference between $1 and $5 million. We can make adjustments much easier on the fly. But again, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we as a board and the administration has been very proactive. Once we had the forecasting tool in place and we got the numbers in there, we started working with it and trying to make sure that it was giving us good information. We were very proactive. I mean, like I said, from the moment I got on this board, even before I got on the board, you guys were having meetings and we were talking about this. And right from the very beginning, the whole idea of being upfront and being transparent was paramount. And I appreciate that. I really do, because I think that goes a long way moving forward with the taxpayers, is that we are going to be transparent moving forward. They need to be able to trust us. And there's a real lack of trust out there in my feel from the taxpayers when I talk with them. I want to put that back in place, that they know they can trust us all. So, I'm sorry, I got up on my soapbox.
So, like I said, I'm gonna probably put some things down in writing and
Good.
provide those to you, but one thing that just came to was we talking about the forecast tool. If we do have the need to do terminations, layoffs, we need to make sure we factor in unemployment compensation costs to the
right.
county in
You're
that
right.
forecast, because we'll have that for a while.
That's correct. We don't pay unemployment insurance. We
They're
pay as we go.
reimbursable,
Yeah.
right?
Self-insured kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. Okay.
Anything else in terms of this topic?
The village, do we need conversation about where we're at with the sheriff's office?
Yeah, did you go to meetings today?
On meetings tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, that's right.
Change that.
Yeah. I got all kinds of stuff
And
tomorrow.
then we've got OEC on Thursday out there.
Yeah, then we'll do our tour then.
After.
Our last visit out there was very impressive with the amount of work that's been done inside. Was
So
amazed.
much more than a shell.
Wow, I mean, they are really moving along at an incredible pace inside. Very looking forward to going on Thursday to see,
So am I.
from month to month, because this is the time where things really starts to take shape inside. It's gonna,
Good.
and I again, just got a good feeling from the last meeting that I went to with the contractors. A lot of good communication. They're moving along. So I did not sense anything that seemed to be really holding the process up, other than just each of the contractors having, staffing issues, trying to get the people in there to get it done, and they're just pushing with who they have. They're trying to get it done as fast as they can. So,
Okay. We'll move on then to the invoice list discussion.
Mm,
I know I look at these, but then I forget what I looked at.
I know, I have to review every time too.
Looking at the December 15th list. I guess I don't see anything surprising.
Yeah, I didn't see. Nope,
Anything in the body of the bills?
nothing on this one. No, this one's pretty straightforward here. I got the others I have questions.
Okay. Move on to the December 22nd list.
But this is where we start getting into those expenses associated with the move. I see
Mhm.
these in the next two here. There's two or three that are really add up fast, don't they?
Oh,
Yeah, wow.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Don't
sir.
have anything specific about the bills. I know there's another committee dealing with a public defender request for wage increase, was it?
Well, hiring a new hire at a higher than start is what the request is.
Okay.
I'll probably say something in announcement on that. Remind me.
Okay. Yes, something to add, all right.
The December 29th list.
That was pretty straightforward too.
Yep.
That one.
The January 5th
Well,
list.
here's the one. And we'll get into the county administrative building move, Sydney Soul and Sons. Wow. Temporary building cabling. On our first payment for the asbestos remediation.
Yes. Yeah, about 10 more just like that coming.
Oh, so how, we're just an appropriate place to ask how they're coming along out over there? Any updates?
Yeah, we could probably get them here at a future meeting.
I think we
to
should think our
update.
next one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to have them here just to give us a feel for where they're at and
Mhm.
progress and
Mhm.
especially if
Yeah.
there's any issues, because boy, I have people asking me, so, all right, so you're gonna go fix the building, then while you're fixing the building, you're gonna find more stuff, right? It's gonna cost us more, right? That's what they keep asking me, is it's gonna turn into a Pandora's box kind of situation. They're just very pessimistic out there.
Well, I know there was, we discovered we couldn't take the coverings off the windows because there were issues.
Yeah, we're looking at that. So the thought was to uncover some of the windows. Like if you look at that building from the
Mhm.
outside, there's obviously a lot more windows than if you look from the inside. So 30-ish years ago, we went ahead and covered those up from the inside to save on, my understanding is heating and cooling costs, mostly, I suppose, cooling costs, because that would make it really hot in there. The thought is maybe some of those or all of those could be removed and now what we did just have it tested to know. But there is a film behind those windows that was put there so that when you're looking from the outside, you don't see like a wall frame.
Hmm.
Right, that would be in the window. So there's behind those is this film that is asbestos. So, when we're done, you will not have an asbestos-free building if those stay, which I don't know if we ever thought it would be asbestos-free building.
Even when it was built. Not in.
But if you want those removed and out,
More cost.
it's a substantial cost.
Okay.
I think if we go seeking for things like that, there will be an opportunity for this to grow in scope and cost. We just have to be smart about those changes that we're seeking from the original contract.
Yep,
Mhm.
makes sense. So what is the plan for the windows though?
I believe that is to leave them alone.
'Cause they're
leave them
encapsulated.
As is, correct,
They're inside,
correct.
so as
Correct.
long as they're not,
In that film, it's not like if you puncture the wall you're gonna hurt that, like you would have to
Right.
open the wall and puncture that, you know, so
Yeah.
instead of having additional disposal costs and all of that.
It's encapsulated enough, and it's not, and it's not gonna deteriorate and fall off.
We don't have to take it out.
Right, you don't have
We
to
don't,
have.
we don't have to remove that. Yeah, it was just a, hey, while we're doing these, the abatement, would this be the time to do that? If we were going to, yes, but it
Cost.
looks like we probably don't want to touch that.
Okay. Understood. Yeah, if they can,
Any other,
if you get them here in the next couple of meetings. that
Yeah,
would be
yeah, we'll invite them. I'm just trying to think of what that meeting will be. 16, 20, I think it'll be January 30th. Because we do have a week off before. We'll have work session regular next week,
Mhm.
and then we have a week off. And then we have committees for the first February meeting again. So I think it'll be the January 30th finance. We'll invite them to.
Okay.
Which is.
So we'll have some, yeah, give us a couple more weeks to get some more done and give us an update on where they're at.
Yes, excellent idea.
Okay.
any other comments, questions?
No, none on that one.
All right. We'll just move these to discussion. We'll move these to the work session for additional discussion. So maybe I should have brought this up during the item 5, discussion regarding major county expenses and funding. But public defender wants a additional position. Tell me again.
No, it's not an additional position, it's a vacant position, it's a budgeted position. But what the public defender came to criminal justice to request this morning was the ability to hire a new hire at a rate higher than start. So the attorneys are on the new pay scale. When someone applies for a vacancy, a department head, elected official has the ability to hire them at start on that scale, right? And then they have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year rate, and they go up. Coming to the Board of Commissioners to request, a department head or elected can get the authority to hire at a rate above start, but that authority rests in the board. You have to grant that authority. That's happened, right? We can think of examples that's happened in the last couple of years. That's kind of our process. It's different than saying, I'm a grade this and I should be 2 grades higher, right? That's a reclassification request. That's different.
Mhm.
We did have quite a lengthy discussion, a good discussion in criminal justice this morning with
I'll watch that.
Chairman Engler and Commissioner Sweeney, and I would encourage you to watch that.
Mhm.
Commissioner Engler really came out with, I want the full board to see this, but with the air of things going on, he struggled with fully supporting it. Good conversation. I think
Okay.
it would be good for you to listen to that.
I need to understand the motivation. I understand maybe they can't get somebody at the current start rate.
Yes, I
Or
mean,
to
yes,
attract
some
better
of
people, you
some
gotta
of
pay more.
that, yeah, so
Some of
there's
that.
some of that, but I think more, I think I was more talking about the commissioner's thoughts.
Okay,
Have to look at it.
I'll watch
The
it.
back of my mind is, yes, we've done this in the past.
Right, but
Because it's coming from the public defender's office, there's a certain tension that we have because it's probably gonna have some impact on prosecuting attorney, on the courts, and it just seems like it keeps snowballing.
yeah,
And you probably haven't had a chance, at the time to look in to see on our current, contract with the state for, the public defender's office, if we can make changes. I know we're looking at a 75-25 contractual. Could that issue be addressed by additional contractual?
we do have, as I understand it, every year we submit a compliance plan to MIDC and we can change, even though back when this came about, 2016, 17, 18 in there, we went with the 75-25 of, hey, 75% of the cases are gonna be handled by a public defender's office with county employees, and the other 25% will be handled by the contracts with those local attorneys for conflict of interest.
Hmm.
Even though we said that that was the best way then, I think every year in our compliance plan, we have the ability to look at
adjust.
that, you know. There was a feasibility study back then and that's what they came up with. Maybe there's a different or a better way now.
I know, my concern was that we weren't able to get enough contract attorneys to take those cases because they were paid so low. Well, that's all been changed, so does that change the dynamics where we could reduce the size of the department and go with more contractual? I don't know how.
Tom and I are gonna start to meet to look at that, and a lot of it's based on that comment by you. I think it was at a full board meeting, maybe last time of. Look, is 75-25 still right for us? So
Yeah.
we're gonna start to take a look at that and what other options are out there for it.
Mm.
The nice thing is. With public defenders, and yes, there's been a lot of scrutiny because of standard 8 and all that. The nice thing is with public defender's office, we have our local share and it doesn't change. Right, our local share has been $240,306.09. And when standard 8 was implemented, our local share is still $240,306.09.
Okay.
Right, the stuff about workload that's coming, our local share should stay the same. And if the state says, nope, you need more attorneys because their workload is too great, the state is funding it. That's where we sit right now with MIDC. Now,
Right.
the state can change that going forward,
The
but
problem comes in is the unfunded mandate, because now we have other
Other
people
attorneys.
that are providing legal services, and they're looking at this. They want the same rate of pay. They
Correct.
want the same workload,
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
that's where the cost is not covered by the state.
No,
Mhm.
that's where we need to, I appreciate you bringing that up, because we have to look at all these things. Again, we kind of get back to talking with the public, is this idea of we're turning over every stone. Looking at every opportunity where we can make, maybe not necessarily make cost savings, but not have to spend more money. So I appreciate that. It's a good idea. Sure.
Yes. Please.
Any announcements or anything you'd like to make?
No, other than Happy New Year to everybody. It's that time.
We'll do another call to the public.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, come on now. Boy, we're gonna start this year off on the wrong foot, are we? You gotta come up and say something. Come on up here, pull up a chair.
I thought it was gonna have nothing to say, you know, but
We can touch on a lot of different subjects and we'll come up with something. You'll have something
you'll
to
have
say.
something, you've always had something, no. One of the things that I kind of has been in the back of my mind, and then I had just talked to somebody last night, one of the other counties. As I've been the treasurer for United County Officers, Association for the last 11 years, and for Michigan Association of Register of Deeds for the last 7 years. So I talked to somebody from all of the counties, elected officials from all 83 counties, and I do that on a regular basis. A lot of them call me because I'm somebody that they know and they have a relationship with. Because of that, I've heard a lot of budget horror stories from a lot of the different counties. One of the things that kind of has been in the back of my mind is, have we looked at the big picture? Are we a county that is different and we're going through, yeah, we are a victim of unfortunate circumstance and we're kind of going through something right now. And we know we've been going through this since 2009. But I know that most of the counties I talk to have had financial trouble since 2009. A lot of them made severe cuts in 2009, have never got their people back, have never been able to provide the services that they once provided. There are a lot of counties, granted they're smaller than we are, that have, like under the register side, there's the register and the chief deputy. Those are mandated positions. You can't have less than the register and the chief deputy. And they have gone to, which I will not disclose who those counties are, not my story to tell, but there are counties that are funding the chief deputy position benefits and the pay under their tech fund because they have no money to fund that position. And I think probably all of you that know anything about the tech fund know that you cannot fund a position, a chief deputy position, which is required to be funded under the general budget, and you can't fund benefits under the tech fund.
You guys keep on the ditches.
But there are numerous counties that have had to fall into some of these crossing financial lines because they don't have funding. I'm wondering, are we just an exception? We know of several other counties in the area that have had to have millages. I know counties that have gone out for millages, counties that have tried. There are a lot of counties right now that are like right on the edge of going out for a millage, and they've already done everything. They haven't had the same services, a level of services that we've had since 2009. A lot of them have had those bare bones cuts. There are a lot of registers that I know and other county officers that when they come to conference, they pay for that conference themselves because their county took away their conference allotment and they never got it back. And so they understand that they cannot perform their job without the education and that information that they have to have, because otherwise their county is kind of on a legal balancing board, and they don't want to be legally liable for that. So they pay out of pocket. They write a personal check for the conference. Now their county may pay for dues for them to be a member of the organization, but they don't pay for them to go to those conferences. And so they do that themselves. There are a lot of horror stories that I know of. My question is, should we kind of, and I know we probably don't have time before things go in February, and we all say I'm the Pollyanna. I would love to think that things go smooth in February, but if they don't, I'm wondering if we need to cast our net out further and find out, is this a Michigan problem? I'm thinking that it's not just an Isabella problem. Is this a Michigan problem? We know that the state, the way that they funded the counties they changed our funding. We haven't had increased funding. Whatever increases we have had has not covered what they've taken away. I'm wondering if this is a problem throughout the state of Michigan, and maybe the problem as a whole needs to be addressed. Because if we're not going to be able to fix this, as we say, we can't fix it with a millage. We can get ourselves on the right path. There's something wrong with the way that our state is having us finance things if we can't fix it. If more money, a little more money isn't going to fix it, there's a problem with the way that we're funding things. It kind of reminds me of, we sold a house back in the 90s in Kalkaska, the year that Kalkaska had no school. And that was when the Proposition A went into effect, and we were part of that. And it was a crazy, crazy time. But Kalkaska is made up of over 40% state land. And so you have lots of people all over in a wide area. Busing was a huge problem. The county couldn't fund busing and put in the proper education so that the kids would be accredited when they went to college. So the school decided, we are not going to send to graduate kids that are not accredited and able to go to college. We're not going to do that. And so they took busing off the table. For quite a few years, Kalkaska had no busing. And so as you can imagine, that was an issue because of the widespread. The year that we moved down here in '93, Kalkaska closed school early because they ran out of funding. And that was their issue. That was when Proposition A finally passed. They were held as the school that wouldn't cross the line. But I think that we're looking at kind of a similar situation. We need to look at that whole big picture and make people aware that it's not just us, it's the whole state. All of the counties in the state of Michigan are facing this problem. I think one of the problems is that there are a lot of small counties that have made do for years and years and years, and they have nothing. There are counties that, Presqu'île, the clerk, they do not have an administrator. The clerk does all the administrative duties. The clerk, they still do the payroll, out of their office. There is, she has to go out for the insurance bids. She does, like, that is her job. She does everything. She doesn't make much more than, she makes way less than our clerk. She doesn't make much more than the average clerk. But those are her duties because that's all that county has. They don't have the money to fund these other positions. And there are a lot of counties that are like that. I think that maybe if we go beyond, like I said, I know there just isn't time before February. But if we go beyond that, I think maybe we look at, we need to fix our problem, but I think we need to be conscious of the fact that I don't think it's just our problem. I think that it is throughout the state of Michigan.
I think it's a state funding issue
Yes.
and how we're being funded. And I've had conversations with Senator Moulinar from the Fed group.
Yes.
Federal rep, and then with Senator, House of Representative Nyer
Mhm.
and Mr. Hauk. Once, I think there is conversation right now at the state level. If leadership changes to where they can have a little more control, that they're gonna look into that. Because I think it's been brought to their attention, not just from us here in Isabella County, but from statewide, to that point that you're making. That the system seems to be, something's not quite right there.
The system's broken.
Yeah. And they want to be able, they're
And the system was broken back from before 2009, because 2009 shouldn't have sunk so many counties. And I think there are so many counties that haven't been able to bounce back since 2009. Well, that may sound realistic, but there's a big gap between 2009 and 2023. Most counties should have been able to bounce back, but the counties have not. And I think that shows that there's a problem. And like we said, yes, the state threw money at us for COVID, but it didn't address the issues.
the root problem. Correct. Mhm. Thank you for that, ma'am.
And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But I will reiterate that to Senator Hauk and Representative Nyer. I'll bring that next time I see them to talk about that. I want to see if there's something being worked on now. Something needs to change.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Final call to the public?
We do have Treasurer Pickens has joined us in the Zoom, but I don't see his hand up.
Treasurer Pickens, how you doing? Happy New Year, sir.
Well, if there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn the meeting
Very good.
at 11:48.
So just want to give you guys a quick